Modern Manufacturing Initiative Round 2 is open, or is just about to be open for most of the streams. And what's nice of them to note is that they have given us a less than a month notice to get it in, and they've done it over the Christmas break. So thank you very much for giving us that opportunity. The first thing I normally do when looking at these grants is see what's been funded in the past. So let's click over to the recipients. And you'll note that they are, and here are the streams on the right. What you'll notice is they're very big projects. They haven't given out too many per stream, and you'll note, there's only 2 for space, 2 for medical, 2 or a few more for resources. Food and beverage, only about 6 or 7. Defence has 2. So it is going to be very competitive. So, example, Defence, $32 million project. So these are very large projects. So it's going to be hotly contested. Let's have a look at the application form. The next thing I do is look at the guidelines. So just opening and going to close pretty soon. So let's look at the top line things that they want to do. So I normally start with the objective. So if you're not in one of these priority areas, then I would not even bother, given that there's so few grants handed out. So let's just scroll on. And the first thing I note, and I've got the food and beverage one open, is very similar for all the other ones. So they basically want you to manufacture locally and export more high-value products to overseas markets. So that to me says you need to be exporting, and if you can do a large percentage of export of this project, that is going to look favourably on your application. So we've got the 2 streams here. The integration stream, service into new markets. So yes, once again, all about getting overseas. And then lots of other sort of fluff words, high value added. So one of the other main things, and the main things I look at is, can you make something very unique? If you are one of the few manufacturers in Australia that can manufacture, that is going to look very good, and then obviously it's going to help increase your exports. So this one's a good grant. You can get up to 50% of the project, most are around the 25%. And this is for projects with a minimum of 1 mil, so you need to have a $2 million project, but most are going to be around the $4 million mark. So these are very big projects, nothing small at all. So let's just jump into the application form. All right, so I always work offline, never in the online. It's very much easier to collaborate offline. You can copy and paste, you can spell check the number of characters. Very hard to do that online. So scroll on. Okay, ABN, tick, you know who you are. Interesting, they've got 2 different streams, both the integration stream. I'm not sure why they've separated that. Just jumped out at me. Okay, eligibility, you better work out whether you're eligible or not. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so put in your trading performance, sales revenue. If you are, you obviously need to be a large entity. That's going to look good. Revenue is going to look good from the export side of it. That's why they ask for that. And current employees. So that's also going to look good because they want to protect manufacturing jobs as well in Australia. So project title, these areas are not examined. They're not part of the merit criteria. So if you read some of the recipients previously, they're very basic. Doesn't really matter too much. So don't spend too much time on that. Detailed description. Talk about, what are the objectives, anything you can measure in terms of dollars, exports, countries, staff, new FTE, upskilling. That's where I put into that area. Okay, and then onto the project outcomes. So once again, not an area that is, does not support formatting. So a little trick here is to do all your headings in capital. So while you could do bold and different heading, font sizes in a Word document, it doesn't translate across. So just do all your headings in uppercase. Just a way to help, and then double space every paragraph. Just helps it, makes it easier for the reader to digest it. Okay, so now previously, jobs count or FTEs was a big thing, and then we went away from that because people or the government realised that, hey, just because you buy this new machinery, we're actually not going to be putting on new staff, we're just going to become more efficient. But now, because of COVID, we're back to putting on new employees. So if you're not putting on new employees, I don't think it's going to get up. The rule of thumb that I use for this one is somewhere between $10,000 to $20,000 of your grant ask per new employee. So that's just been a rule of thumb in the past. They haven't disclosed how many jobs were put onto the previous rounds, but I would still go in with that number and try to boost that number where you can, or reduce your ask to get that value for money, because then actually helps with the value for money section as well. So then we've got the retained jobs. So yeah, obviously protecting manufacturing. Project duration, obviously keep that within the couple of years that they ask for that. Milestones, once again, not examined, but just do a very simple, start, commissioning, delivery, assessment, all that sort of just general, project management. You can put that in. Location. They tended to give to one to like every state, so not that you can change where you are, but yeah, they're only going to give us one per state or thereabouts. And then once again, here is the employees question. Not part of the merit criteria, but they are asking for that. And then we got here the COVID. Now, there was a section around COVID, whether COVID impacted you. So they're going to favour companies that haven't been impacted by COVID, that are still growing irrespective of COVID, because COVID's going to be around for a while. So then obviously you've got to separate your costs. That's the easy part. Okay, so plant and equipment, labour experience. I've got a good Excel model. If you click somewhere or you Google somewhere, I've got that link to the financial model, how to set that up. And do your financial projections. So then it's easier to put in the value, to put in some value creation. So within 5 years, you're going to create, so much revenue and so much profit. Just a way to help extract some more information out of your project and write about it. Source of funding, best thing to do is to use your own funds. You've got to de-risk the project. So while you don't need to use your own funds, but in the application, put it as your own funds. So you're not relying on, we've got to go out to the banks and, find information. We've got to go and get an investor, or we've got to reach out to our shareholders. Try to say you've got the money in the bank. If not, you've got access to it. While it might be working capital, it doesn't really matter. So onto the assessment criteria. There are 3 or 4, generally 3. So let's just look. So this is half of the application. Is in section 1. Okay, so you need to then go and write up what are the objectives of the manufacturing priority. So go look up those, but here they've given you some examples. So facilitate growth and greater investment in your business in Australian manufacturing by integrating to local and global value chains. Which are the waffle words that they use. In essence, they want you to export. If you're collaborating with other verticals or suppliers, that's going to look good as well. But basically, they want you to get into export. Use new technology and equipment to support entry into local global value chains. Once again, fluff words. So that to me says you're going to get new equipment anyway. It's going to be state of the art. If it doesn't already exist in Australia, that's good, but most people aren't really buying the machinery that you're going to be buying anyway. But anything that involves robots, 3D printers, AI, machine learning, any of those sort of buzzwords, anything that's sort of cool like that is going to be good. Anything that increases throughput, that can run through the night, reduces the amount of tooling, that reduces the labour input, the variability, the wastage, the environment, all that sort of stuff is going to look good, that I would leverage off from your new technology. Okay, support new jobs. So once again, new jobs and highly skilled. So obviously just say your basic operators are going to use a new technology, so therefore I would leverage off, how they're going to be trained in the new technology. Talk about the new jobs that are coming out. So do an analysis of, what you've got currently, what you'll get in year 1, year 3, year 5 of the project. So while the project might be finished, you're still going to ramp up. So you might want to do a measurement over a number of years of the value or the jobs created. Okay, support your business to pivot to higher value activities. So if you're making basic stuff and there's 10 to 30 other manufacturers that do the same thing in Australia, you ain't going to get the grant. You need to be one of 2 or 3, if not only the one company in Australia that makes what you make. There's the thing called comparative advantage. Competitive neutrality. There we are. You get it. So competitive neutrality means that they don't want to be seen to be giving money to one company at the expense of putting another company out of business. So there's no net benefit to Australia. So if you are the only company that makes what you do in Australia, you're not going to put anyone else out of work. You're going to put China out of work or America out of work. That's fine. So that's where you want to be for that one. So anything that makes high valued product is going to look good. Manufacturing smile curve, I'm not familiar with that term, but obviously moving up the value chain. Correct opportunity access manufacturing networks, ecosystems, partnerships. So if you can partner with like universities for R&D or dissemination of the information, that's going to look good. Advance your business ability and readiness to identify, enter, and operate. You like how they just say the same thing over and over. Anyway, it just means export. Get into export and try to prove how much demand there is. You've got to de-risk the project. So try to show that you've already got inroads, you've got customer letters that want your products, that are demanding your product in all these overseas markets. So, and then support the development of commercialization of new and emerging foods. So once again, value add. If you're making a raw ingredient, it's really not going to fly. If you're leveraging off R&D, talk about the R&D that you've already done. Talk about any IP that you have generated, and that protects your product from competitors is going to be great. And then anything here, obviously improved health and well-being. Anything that is different to others that you can measure is going to look good. Okay, encourage collaboration on the value chain. Industry growth. I mentioned robotics, sensors, monitoring systems. Everyone's going to have that anyway. Once again, value chains. But I would look at encourage collaboration. So how can you help other manufacturers and or competitors or collaborators access the same market? So that might be verticals, it might be suppliers, that you're going to say, hey, send us your stuff, we'll value add it and we'll send it over overseas, that they may not have had access to in the past. Support digitally enabled food and beverage technologies and platforms to enter. Once again, just stop repeating yourselves, seriously. Support collaboration of more value chains. You're going to notice they ask the same thing over and over, and they just use buzzwords. But just try to simplify what you're talking about. Data-driven systems, of course, everyone's got that. Traceability. I think that's a big one at the moment, to show where the food has come from. So you can show which farm that your wine has been made from and your region. That's going to be looking good if there is a demand for that overseas. Okay, investing in facilities that enhance the competitiveness and capability of manufacturers. So competitiveness is you may be decreasing the wastage, increasing the quality, increasing the environmental footprint, so the value of the product is increasing, and then obviously maybe the profit margin is increasing compared to what you're currently doing now, or you've got to scale up to meet the export demand. If you are at capacity and you cannot meet the export demand, that is going to be looking good for you. Support onshoring manufacturing. Less so, I think, onshoring. So while some people maybe bring it onshore, you will need that extra bit as well of IP and differentiatability of your product compared to others. So I think that one's less so, because you're already sort of supplying to the same market. They really want to be seeing growth. Support the creation of new skilled jobs. So yes, once again, try to get as many jobs as possible at around the $10,000 to $20,000 per ask for the job. Okay, and then once again, expand, strengthen, and grow the Australian manufacturing sector. Yes, it's all about export. So on to the 25%. This is the assessment criterion number 2. Using subheadings. Yes, I always use subheadings, always use dot points. Make a statement, like a question or a response, and then answer that question to make it very easy for someone to scan, know what they're going to read, and then they read in further detail. It answers the question that you had already posed. So once again, track record. Talk about the big projects you've done in the past. Look at the CVs of everyone. Go write a good bio about everyone. So look at your general manager. Look at you might be in a 20, 30-year-old company. Talk about all the projects that you've done. Talk about the export markets that you've gone into. Your project managers with the right skills. Put in a project management. Here we manage the project. Yeah. So I always put in a project management plan of who's managing the project, who's in charge, what's the reporting, who's looking at the budget, who's looking at the risks. And so that you're still accountable and measuring that along the way. So there's offices you can't really influence, but your project you can. So this is really who you are. If you're not, good enough, then you're not going to fly. But I'd say most people are going to tick this one quite well, because if you're running a large company, which most of the applicants are, you're going to tick this section. So it's really section 1 that is going to be the differentiator to everyone else. And then number 3 is another 25%. Okay, what will the total additional investment grant will leverage? So that's really the return on investment. So, you're asking for 2 mil, it'll generate another 2 mil, or you'll supply another 2 mil, and then talk about all the revenue and profits that you'll generate down the track, and then how that will be reinvested into either R&D or further capital or expansion. So just look for multiple measures of leverage. What are the additional activities this grant would enable you to undertake? So basically, buying the equipment. They are silly questions sometimes. Spillover effects and the national manufacturing priorities. I haven't looked at what they are, but really talk about the supply chain. Who else are you going to help along the way? And why do you believe the Australian government should invest in your project? Consider the grant will benefit in the terms of scale and timing. So the answer is written right there for you. So without the government investment, you would not do the project of this size. So the government would miss out on the export opportunity, and you would just supply the demand in the local market. The other option is in timing. So while you may do the whole project, it might take 10 years as opposed to 2 or 3 years with the government's assistance. Impact the business and ability to be self-sustaining. So you don't want to show that there is a massive, fixed cost that you cannot get back. So yeah, they don't want to be funding, like, you remember the manufacturing of the automotive sector. They don't want to be having that scenario again where they've got to keep reinvesting every year. So they want to give you the bit of money, help you grow, and then take over the world. So that's in essence the main part of it. I'll see if there's anything else in here. So project partners, try to put someone if you can. Always looks good to have a collaboration. Conflict of interest, supporting documentation, trust deed. All right, so these are pretty much tick boxes. Evidence of board support. I've seen these grant applications fall over because I don't provide this information. Okay, project plan, I've talked about that. So talk about the timeline, who's doing it. Often I repeat what's actually in the grant application. So once again, it's the project management team. Any sort of background research, so any business plan you've got, analysing the product, the market, the export market, that all looks good. And then the list of key staff. That's once again, it's the bios again, risk management plan. Make sure that is detailed as possible. Look at the ISO methodology for doing a risk management plan. Google, copy and paste what someone else has already done in the past, and just list every potential risk that you can overcome. So, what if the equipment doesn't arrive? What if you can't find the right people? What if you can't get the money? What if you can't get into export? What if there's COVID? Just expand all these and how you'll address it. Detail the project budget as much as possible. If you've got quotes, that's going to be good to help really. You want to show yourself being shovel ready. Provide evidence so here we go. Yeah, so intent from a contract or customer that demonstrates you have domestic or international. So what I would do here is I would approach all the companies that you've been speaking to or want to speak to overseas, and get them to write a letter. And the letter is in three parts. The first part is who they are, describe what they are. Second part is about the market and the opportunity for the product, and then third is a bit more about. Actually, I forget what I wanted, but it's normally three sections. So who they are, the opportunity, and then the market. I've got a set sort of. Reach out to me, and I can probably send one to you. It doesn't really bind the companies to it, but it looks good on paper. So if you rock up with 5 to 10 letters of support saying, hey, we really want your product, or even as close as you can get to purchase orders, that's going to look very good for your application. Once again, letters of support, project partners, these are not as good. Everyone can go get a letter from a minister that says, oh, this would be great for the region. They're all meaningless. The proving intent to buy from a customer is 100 times more powerful than these wishy-washy letters. We can supply you with a new machine. Of course you can. Meaningless. Accountant's declaration just shows that you've got the money. That's the main stuff. So good luck with that application. Enjoy telling your family you're not going to be turning up for Christmas lunch, and you're giving up Boxing Day sitting on the couch watching the cricket. So good luck with your application.